Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're about to kick off a deep dive into something I think you'll find super interesting. It's all about eco-friendly paddling.
Awesome.
Kayaking and paddleboarding are amazing ways to connect with nature, but we also want to make sure that we're not harming the very environment we're enjoying, right?
Absolutely.
So for this deep dive, we're going to be looking at some really cool ideas from the Motor City Paddle Club, and they have a fantastic podcast episode all about eco-friendly paddling and leave no trace principles.
I love that podcast.
You too. It's packed with practical advice that we can all use to minimize our impact while we're out on the water.
Yeah.
Now, I've got to admit, sometimes I get so caught up in just being out there, like the beauty of it all, that I don't always think about my impact as much as I should.
I feel that.
Like I might shove a granola bar wrapper in my pocket and forget to pack it out later.
Yeah.
Little things like that.
Yeah, it's easy to do, especially when you're focused on having fun and enjoying the experience. But that's why it's so important to have these leave no trace principles in mind. It's not about being perfect all the time. It's about making conscious choices and striving to do better.
I love that. So let's talk about these principles.
Yeah,
What's the first step on this leave no trace journey?
it all starts with planning and preparation.
Okay.
It's kind of like when you go on a road trip. You wouldn't just hop in the car without checking the map or packing some snacks, right?
Definitely not. I'm a planner, for
Yeah.
sure. So that makes total sense.
Exactly. And the same goes for paddling. Before you even hit the water, think about things like reusable water bottles, making sure you can pack out all of your trash, and even researching the area you'll be paddling in.
Research. What kind of research are we talking about?
Well, knowing the local rules and regulations is huge. Are there any restrictions on where you can launch your kayak? Are there sensitive areas you should avoid? Things like that.
Oh,
Are
yeah.
campfires allowed?
Huh.
All those things can impact the environment, so it's really important to be informed before you go.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's
Yeah.
like knowing the rules of the road, but for the waterway.
Precisely. And speaking of roads, or in this case, paths, the second principle is all about traveling and camping on durable surfaces.
Okay, so like sticking to established trails and campsites
Yes. Yes,
seems pretty straightforward.
It is, but it's also about understanding why that's so important. When we venture off those designated paths, we can trample vegetation, disturb wildlife habitats, even contribute to erosion.
Wow.
Imagine if everyone took a shortcut through a field.
Yeah,
It wouldn't be long before that field was completely destroyed.
that's a great analogy. I definitely don't want to be the person who ruins a beautiful spot for everyone else.
Yeah.
So established trails and campsites it is. Okay, but what about trash?
Yes.
I mean, it
Oh,
seems like that would be a big concern when you're out on the water.
You're absolutely right. Proper waste disposal is crucial. And that's actually the third leave no trace principle. And remember, we're not just talking about big pieces of trash here.
Like, what else is there? I always make sure to pack out my empty water bottles and snack wrappers.
That's great. But think about the smaller stuff like food scraps, apple cores, even those little plastic rings from a six-pack of drinks.
Oh,
Those might seem harmless, but they can actually have a big impact.
really? I always thought those things would just decompose naturally.
Unfortunately, it's not always that simple.
Uh-huh.
Those smaller bits of trash, often called microtrash, can take a really long time to break down.
Wow.
And they can be harmful to wildlife. Birds might mistake them for food, fish could get tangled in them, and it all just contributes to the overall pollution of our waterways.
Okay, that's eye-opening. I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to be more mindful of even the tiniest bits of trash from now on. Maybe I should pack an extra bag or two just for collecting any stray trash I find along the way.
I love that idea. Every little bit helps. And speaking of leaving things behind, that brings us to the fourth principle, leave what you find.
Okay, so no picking wildflowers or pocketing cool-looking rocks. I have to admit, I'm sometimes tempted.
I totally get it. They are beautiful. But everything in nature has a purpose. Wildflowers provide food for pollinators. Rocks provide shelter for small creatures. And even a fallen log can be an important part of the ecosystem.
Mm.
When we remove things, we disrupt that delicate balance.
Right. It's like taking a piece of a puzzle away. It might seem small, but it affects the whole picture.
Exactly.
So admire it, take a picture if you want, but leave it where it belongs.
Got it. What's next?
The fifth principle is all about minimizing our impact when we camp overnight. And that often means rethinking our approach to campfires.
But campfires are so cozy and fun. What's the issue with those?
I know they add a certain magic to the experience, but they can also have a negative impact on the environment. Building a fire requires gathering firewood, which can deplete natural resources.
Okay.
Plus, campfires leave scars on the ground and can even contribute to wildfires.
So what's the alternative? Shiver in the dark.
Not at all. There are some great eco-friendly options. If you need to cook, consider using a portable stove instead of building a fire.
And for warmth and ambiance, there are fantastic solar-powered lanterns that provide plenty of light without any environmental impact.
Good to know. I'm all for enjoying the warmth and light of a campfire without harming the environment. Okay, so we've covered planning, staying on durable surfaces, managing waste, and leaving nature undisturbed. What about all the amazing wildlife we often encounter while paddling? I'm always in awe of the creatures we see out on the water.
Me too. And that brings us to principle number 6, which is all about respecting wildlife. This one is super important because our actions can have a big impact on animals whether we realize it or not.
So what are the key things to remember when it comes to respecting wildlife while paddling?
The most important thing is to observe animals from a distance. Getting too close can stress them out, disrupt their natural behaviors, and even put you at risk.
Okay, no close-up selfies with curious otters then. Got it.
Yeah.
But what if they approach us? Sometimes animals can be pretty bold, especially if they're used to humans.
You're right, that can definitely happen, especially in areas where animals have become accustomed to humans. The key is to remain calm, avoid sudden movements, and let the animal dictate the interaction. And whatever you do, resist the urge to feed them.
Feeding them? Why is that a problem?
Yeah.
It's kind of cute to share your snacks with a friendly squirrel, right?
I know it can be tempting, but feeding wildlife can actually be very harmful. It disrupts their natural foraging habits, makes them dependent on humans for food, and can even lead to aggression or the spread of diseases. Plus, some animals might start associating humans with food and become a nuisance or even a danger to other paddlers.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. I'll definitely keep my snacks to myself from now on. So we've covered respecting nature, but what about respecting our fellow paddlers?
Great question. Leave no trace isn't just about minimizing our impact on the environment, it's also about being considerate of others. And that's our final principle, be considerate of other visitors.
Makes sense, especially when you're sharing a waterway with other paddlers, boaters, maybe even swimmers. So what does being considerate look like in practice?
It's all about sharing the space respectfully and ensuring everyone has a positive experience. That means keeping noise levels down, being mindful of your wake, and giving others plenty of space.
Okay.
And sometimes it even means taking a moment to educate fellow paddlers about leave no trace principles if you see someone unintentionally making a negative impact.
That's a great point. We can all learn from each other and help create a more eco-conscious paddling community. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from planning and packing to respecting wildlife and being considerate of others. These leave no trace principles provide a really comprehensive framework for enjoying paddling while minimizing our impact.
I agree. And the great thing is that the Motor City Paddle Club doesn't just stop at these principles. They also offer practical solutions for dealing with common challenges we might encounter while paddling, like encountering litter or preventing the spread of invasive species.
Okay, I'm really interested in those practical solutions. Let's dive into those next.
Welcome back. So glad we're digging deeper into these real-world paddling challenges because let's be honest, sometimes even with the best intentions, things happen.
Yeah, like what do you do if you come across a bunch of trash in the water?
Uh,
It's so disheartening. And I'm not always sure what the best course of action is. Do I just ignore it?
I hear you. It can be frustrating to see that, especially when you're trying to enjoy the beauty of nature. But here's the thing, even if it's not your trash, you can still make a difference.
Like a see it, pick it up kind of thing.
Exactly. The Motor City Paddle Club is a huge advocate for that approach.
Oh, cool.
They encourage paddlers to carry a small mesh bag or even a trash grabber tool to collect any litter they encounter along the way.
That's a great idea. I always feel like such a sense of accomplishment when I pick up trash, even if it's just a few small pieces.
Yep.
It's like a mini cleanup mission every time I paddle.
It is. And think about the ripple effect. If everyone who paddled picked up just a few pieces of trash, our waterways would be so much cleaner.
That's true. Plus, it sets a good example for others.
Yeah.
Maybe seeing someone else picking up trash will inspire them to do the same.
Absolutely. It's about creating a culture of responsibility and showing that we all have a role to play in protecting our waterways.
Yeah.
Now, besides tackling litter, another challenge paddlers face is the spread of invasive species. Have you ever heard of those?
I have. I know they can cause some serious problems for ecosystems. But to be honest, I'm not exactly sure what they are or how they spread.
So invasive species are basically plants or animals that aren't native to a particular area,
Okay.
and they can cause harm when they're introduced. They can outcompete native species, disrupt food webs, even alter habitats.
Wow.
And unfortunately, they can be easily spread through recreational activities like paddling.
Oh, no. So how do we prevent that from happening?
Oh,
I definitely don't want to be responsible for spreading these harmful invaders.
The good news is that there's a really simple but effective way to prevent their spread: cleaning your gear.
Oh, okay.
Every time you finish a paddling trip, make sure to thoroughly wash your kayak paddle life vest, any other equipment that came into contact with the water.
Really, just washing it is enough.
It might seem simple, but it's incredibly effective.
Hmm.
Those tiny invasive species can hitch a ride on your gear, so by washing it off, you're preventing them from being transported to a new location.
Okay, I'm definitely adding gear cleaning to my post-paddling checklist. It's amazing how such a small action can have such a big impact.
It is. And you know what else is inspiring? The Motor City Paddle Club doesn't just tell us about these challenges, they actually take action. They organize regular cleanup events and partner with local parks to promote eco-friendly paddling.
That's awesome. I love that they're walking the walk, so to speak. Tell me more about those initiatives.
Well, their cleanup events are legendary. They rally their members and the local community to come together and remove trash from waterways.
What's so special about their cleanup events?
They make it fun and engaging for everyone involved. It's not just about picking up trash, it's about building community, raising awareness, and celebrating our shared love for the water. They often have music, food, and prizes, so it's a really positive and rewarding experience.
It's a fantastic way to turn what could be a chore into a celebration. And what about their partnerships with local parks?
They've teamed up with several parks in the area, including Weber Paddle Park in Chesterfield Township. They work closely with park officials to maintain the beauty of these places, educate visitors about eco-friendly practices, and even offer guided paddles focused on leave no trace principles.
Wow, that's a great example of how collaboration can make a real difference. They're not just talking about these principles, they're actively putting them into action.
Exactly. And that's something we can all do, whether it's joining a local paddling club, volunteering at a park cleanup, or simply spreading the word about eco-friendly paddling to our friends and family.
I love that. It's like they've created this ripple effect of positive action, inspiring others to get involved and protect our precious waterways.
They have. And it just goes to show that even small actions can make a big difference. Whether it's picking up a piece of trash, washing your gear, or simply spreading the word, we can all contribute to creating a more sustainable and enjoyable paddling experience for everyone.
Well said. And before we wrap up part 2 of this deep dive, I want to remind our listener that we'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonates most with you? What steps are you taking to paddle with purpose? Welcome back to the deep dive. I'm feeling really inspired after exploring all those practical tips and inspiring actions from the Motor City Paddle Club. They're really making a difference.
I know, right? It's not just about talking the talk. They're out there walking the walk, showing us all how to paddle with purpose.
Yeah, and that's what I love about this whole idea of eco-friendly paddling. It's not about giving up our enjoyment of the sport.
Right.
It's about enhancing it by taking care of these amazing waterways so they're healthy and beautiful for generations to come.
Exactly. And you know what really struck me? How simple a lot of these actions are. You don't have to be a hardcore environmentalist or paddling expert to make a difference.
Absolutely. It's those everyday choices that we make that can have a big impact, like bringing a reusable water bottle instead of a disposable one, or properly disposing of your trash, being mindful of where you launch your kayak.
All those seemingly small things can really add up, especially when you multiply those actions by thousands of paddlers. It creates a powerful ripple effect.
It's so cool to think that we can all be a part of something bigger than ourselves and help protect our planet.
And you know, it's not just about what we do on the water. It's about taking those values into our everyday lives, making conscious choices about the products we buy, the companies we support, even the way we interact with the environment in general.
I love that. It's like eco-friendly paddling is more than just a hobby. It's a mindset, a way of life.
It's true. And it can be contagious, too, when you start making these changes in your own life and sharing your passion with others.
Yeah.
It inspires them to do the same.
I've totally seen that happen.
Yeah.
When I talk to my friends about eco-friendly paddling, they're always surprised by how easy it is to make a difference. And then they get excited about it, too.
That's awesome. It's all about building that community of like-minded people who care about protecting the places we love.
Exactly. Speaking of community, I think it's worth mentioning again that the Motor City Paddle Club is an amazing resource for anyone who wants to get more involved.
Absolutely.
They have so much great information on their website and podcast.
Yeah.
Plus, they host all sorts of events throughout the year.
It's a great way to connect with other paddlers and learn more about eco-friendly practices.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a question. What's your pledge going to be? How will you bring the spirit of eco-friendly paddling into your next adventure? Every action, no matter how small, has the power to make a difference.
It's true. Let's all work together to make sure that future generations can experience the joy of paddling just like we do.
Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery. Happy paddling, everyone.